Good evening and welcome to Fleetway's Roundup with your boy, of course, me. And guys, I'm probably gonna have to cut this intro a little shorter than I normally do because when I tell you we got a lot of breakdown, we got a lot. And as you even see in the title, and even as you probably saw through the little messages and notifications, that this is going to be heavily sports focused. I mean, we do have a few little movie, video game stuff I want to just quickly get through, but the rest is going to be nothing but sports. We're going to talk about a little bit of the NBA playoffs that are actively going right now. Who knows, maybe one of your teams is playing and you want to get an update on what's going on with them and what possibly might happen in their playoff matches. We're going to talk about some NFL news, which there's a lot, especially considering that the draft is coming up in a few days. And, of course, we're also going to talk about Wrestlemania, as Wrestlemania 42 just happened over this weekend. And, of course, the first night wasn't too big, but the second night, that ended up being the one that everybody loves talking about. So we're going to break that all down here for you guys tonight, and I'm ready to get into this. So first, like I said, we're going to talk about some small little minor topics here in the video game, movie, anime space before we then get into all the big juicy stuff. So first thing here is, let me move my little camera out the way. First thing, we're going to just briefly talk that over these past few days, there, especially on Saturday, and if I'm correct, Sunday, there was a big kind of event going on for, I think anybody has possibly heard about the series Dragon Ball, of course. You've probably seen these two characters somewhere, some way, shape, or form, or even heard the name Goku somewhere out there, or the Kamehameha, something along those lines. Well, they had a big little event go on over the weekend called the Dragon Ball Battle Hour. This is where typically they bring a lot of very well-known gamers in the fighting game community that play a lot of Dragon Ball games all together in a tournament style with the different games. They face off, they fight, they play games, but they also use that event to kind of give little reveals here and there. And probably as you're even seeing in this list, some of the stuff that was revealed, they had some more additional trailers for some of the future of Dragon Ball as far as the anime goes. They showed that they're doing a remaster of some of the previous arcs that they've done, so in better animation, which is always a good thing because a lot of the old what was before was rough. So it's good that they're going to be doing a remake. So that's something that's got fans pretty excited. They showed off some new games. As I'm going to scroll down and even show them the picture, they showed off, of course, the finale for the famous Dragon Ball game, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, and its final DLC before they move on to bigger, better things, which is in this bottom corner, which they announced the sequel to the Xenoverse franchise with Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3. So that had fans a lot of the fans excited and hyped. Another thing they also broke down was future DLC / a 2.0 for an existing Dragon Ball game, Sparking Zero, which is a continuation of the Budokai Tenkaichi series. So that game got revealed with new DLC, new characters, new moves. They're doing a whole revamp. People are happy about that. And then the last thing that was shown off was finally the reveal of, and I know I sound like a nerd, but hey, I got to be knowing this kind of information to be able to break it down for anybody that is aware of it or might be interested. But the last thing they showed off was for an existing other Dragon Ball game called Dragon Ball Fighter Z, and they revealed the new DLC character in Super Saiyan 4 Goku from the recent Daima anime series that came out last year, if I'm correct, which is crazy. Ooh. It's been 1 year since Daima's came out. That's insane. But time flies. It really does. But yeah, so it was just a cool little event. That's where all the Dragon Ball fans and gamers got to come together, and people got to learn new things about this franchise that's been going on for as long as it has. But hey, if I got any Dragon Ball fans watching this, share it in the comments and say here or say I'm a fan. Just let me know. But we're going to go and move on to our next thing, some movie news, as we do have at least two big ones I felt like I did want to bring up. One of the first ones was, I think we did briefly mention that there has been talks about a X-Men reboot film in the works. Recently, the Cosmic Circus, a very well-known and very reliable source for Marvel content, reported he was one of the people who was first talking about that Wolverine wasn't going to be apparently part of this lineup. Well, he doubles down on that, and some of the other stuff he talks about with this upcoming film is, one, will feature a coming of age story. That's something that I have heard in rumors, is that they're trying to cast a lot of younger actors to play these X-Men characters, because they apparently want people to kind of grow up with these new X-Men members that are joining the MCU. And I think that's a smart idea. You know, people get more attached if they're growing up with these people, watching them grow and get better and turn more into the X-Men that we're more familiar with. He doubles down, like I said earlier, that Wolverine will not be part of the lineup, which I know there's a lot of people not happy about that, because Wolverine is Wolverine. He's the standout of the X-Men. But some people who might be real comic fans might remember that Wolverine, he was not a part of the original lineup of the X-Men. He was a newer addition. The original lineup, if I'm correct, was Cyclops, Jean Grey, I think Beast, Angel, Iceman. I think that's it. I think that was the original team. I think he even actually says it right here. The original 5 X-Men will be the main team. So I was right. Wow. Okay. Good on me. I guess I really do be making sure to pay attention to my information. But yeah, that was the original lineup. Wolverine was never part of that. He became later down the line. But then, since the original X-Men movies, they put Wolverine front and center. And a lot of people notice they kind of set themselves up for failure as far as future projects, because everybody was always looking for Wolverine. Wolverine became the standout. He became the popular X-Men. And that sadly pushed a lot of the popular X-Men, the other X-Men characters like Storm, who's also well known, but still pushed people like her to the side. It pushed Cyclops to the side. It pushed Jean Grey. It pushed a lot of other popular at that time X-Men characters to the background, because everybody was all on Wolverine and his 3 claws that would come out of his fist. And so I think it's a smart move for him not to be part of this lineup for this first reboot film. Now, I think he'll come down the line, but I do also think it's the smarter move to just focus on the main 5 and then work on us developing and growing with these actors and characters. So then sooner or later, when we do get to Wolverine, it's like, it's hype, because it's like, oh, there he is. He's finally here. But at least the others get chances to shine and show off those cool abilities that they have. So that's something that he also says. As I also mentioned too, will feature a younger cast that grows over time. The lineup won't be as big as the one in X-Men 97. For those that don't know, X-Men 97 was the continuation of the original X-Men animated series that came back way back when. Disney had released a continuation to that, and it was really good, surprisingly good. I was afraid that they would mess it up, but they did it right. And so they're saying the lineup won't be as big, and as his final little point is, the original 5 X-Men will be the main team with 3 additional members. So that now leaves, like I said, we have the original 5, which is Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Angel, and Iceman. Now then that adds into who could those 3 extra members be. Some people think it could be maybe Jubilee. Some think it could be Rogue, Gambit. I don't know for sure. I think Storm is going to be one of them. She's very much up there in popularity. I think they're going to definitely include her in this team. I don't know who the other 2 could be, but there's a lot of X-Men to pick from, a lot of popular ones. So I think no matter how they do this, people are going to be happy, and I'm excited. Any X-Men, any Marvel, X-Men, Wolverine fans, what do you think about Wolverine not being part of this original lineup of this new X-Men team they're doing for the reboot movie that's part of the MCU? Share your comments share your opinions to the chat and comment below. But next thing we're going to move on to that I also wanted to say is we have talked about this movie before, and that was Coyote versus Acme. I've talked about this one for a brief period. It was a couple weeks ago, because there hasn't really been too much news. But thankfully, because of, as I did say last week, CinemaCon had came out. While there was no trailer there at CinemaCon, they did have a poster, and there was merchandise for this movie. If you don't know the backstory, I'll give a brief summary. Essentially, this was a movie that was supposed to be released by Warner Brothers but because of the merger that happened between Discovery And Warner Brothers, they tried to cancel Coyote versus Acme for a tax write-off. It sadly happened to a Scooby-Doo movie they were supposed to be working on that got canned for a tax write-off. People might remember there was supposed to be a Batgirl movie a while back that Michael Keaton was supposed to be reprising his role as Batman in that film. And sadly, they canceled that movie too for a tax write-off. So David Zaslav and all those people behind in Warner Brothers Discovery, they tried to get rid of a lot of movies for tax write-offs. But for some reason, Coyote versus Acme, this was the movie that found a way to survive. Fans clamored, fans yelled, they fussed, they cussed. Yeah, they cussed too, expressing their anger towards this movie getting canned because there were early test screenings, people saying that this movie was beautiful, that they cried watching it and stuff. And to hear a movie is supposed to be that good and they were getting ready to get rid of it, people were mad. And enough people talked, and finally Warner Brothers, they were like, okay, fine. You guys don't want us to get rid of this movie. We'll put it out there for sale, see who is interested in buying it from us, and whoever the highest bidder is that they'll get their hands on it, and they'll get the rights to stream this movie however they wish. Whether it's in theaters or their streaming site, we don't care, as long as it's off our hands. And the bidding war went on. Nothing was heard, but then finally, Ketchup Entertainment, the people who actually released the other Looney Tunes movie that came out, I think 2 or 1 year ago. It was called The Day the Earth Blew Up. They helped release that movie, which was another one Warner Brothers tried to cancel for a tax write-off. So they've been saving the Looney Tunes movies. Sadly, the other movies couldn't be saved, but they've been saving these Looney Tunes ones. And the reason we're talking about this movie, because there's a trailer coming out tomorrow, and they dropped a small little teaser, which I am going to play in the background here, and we're going to watch through. And I saw it earlier today. It looks good. I'm a Looney Tunes fan. I love me some Looney Tunes, and I'm pretty excited about this. So like I said, I'm going to take my camera off here, play this in the background for you guys to listen to, and then we'll be back to keep it pushing with the next pair of news.
Dropping the trailer for Coyote vs. Acme. Yes, the long-anticipated, once-canned movie is finally coming out. The trailer is going to blow the roof off the whole Acme conspiracy. So if you're seeing this, I just want to confirm a few things. I am not hiking near any cartoonishly tall cliffs. If a piano is being moved into a tall building, I am on the other side of the street. And I have never bought, nor will I ever experiment with TNT. If I am flattened, exploded, launched, dropped, or otherwise removed from existence, that would be extremely suspicious.
Like I said, that trailer is a very high, and that's only just a small teaser for the trailer coming up. So it's very high octane. It looks good. This feels like, in my opinion, what I've been waiting for as a continuation for a very beloved movie of mine, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Ever since that movie came out, it changed a lot in the film industry as far as being able to cross that line between an animated character being on the same screen as a live, real human being. So this feels like I'm excited. And as you saw from the little teaser, essentially what's happening is, if you are a Looney Tunes person, you've seen Wile E. Coyote, the guy here in this one, him always trying to chase down the Roadrunner, but every time he buys a gadget from the Acme Corporation, it backfires and pretty much almost kills him. And well, the whole point of this movie is he plans on taking Acme to court because to basically get him for everything that they've done in every failure he has experienced. So again, I'm excited for this movie. Hopefully the little teaser I showed you has your interest peaked in possibly seeing what is coming out of this. And also I see you, Keena Davis 4142, watching from Spring, Texas. All right, all right. We already know that this show is here from Texas, so always love to be seeing fellow Texans watching on here. But yeah, once again, I hope that little teaser I showed you got you maybe a little interested in what could be coming out from this Coyote versus Acme. I plan on watching it because I want to support the creatives behind it and kind of do like as Chris Brown say, do a little bit of a middle finger up to Warner Brothers and say deuces. But yeah, so again, that's Coyote versus Acme. Their trailer is up and coming. Tell me, are you excited? Share that in the chat or comment below. But now we're moving on to the stuff that I was talking about before, and that is we are into the sports section, which will be taking up the rest of this show tonight. So strap in, make your popcorn, because we got a lot. First thing, exactly. Thank you. I'm glad someone sees. I'm glad someone sees the vision that it looks like it's gonna be a fun movie. Like I said, I'm pretty excited for what they got in store. I love me some Looney Tunes, so I'm glad to see that we're getting a new Looney Tunes movie in theaters after all these years. Because I think we had the second Space Jam movie, but I didn't really care for it that much. But again, here we go. We are now getting to the sports section. The first thing is we're just kind of giving a little bit of a brief rundown on the NBA playoffs that are happening currently right now. I think everybody knows about the NBA playoffs. We all know about the basketball, the National Basketball Association. We know, all the teams and all of that. And well, the playoffs are going on right now. They've been going on for the past few days. Our final lineups on both the East and the West side have been officially laid out for us. As you can even see on the screen here, our little matchups are the Cavaliers and the Raptors, the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, the Hawks and the Knicks, the Rockets and the Lakers, the 76ers and the Celtics, the Suns and the Thunder, the Magic and the Pistons, and last but not least, the Trailblazers and the Spurs. These are our final contestants on both. Like I said, there's the East Conference and then there's the West Conference. This is basically the NBA's version of how the NFL started making their AFC, NFC. And so with these first ones, as you see the little scores, the games that I kind of want to talk about is 3 games, those being 2 games that a lot of people kind of walked away from and said, yeah, these were blowouts. And then 1 game that kind of surprised everybody. That being, well, the first game that we're going to talk about is this one right here I'm circling, between the Suns and the Thunder. Sadly, the Suns are the team that eliminated my Golden State Warriors from possibly making it to the playoffs, but honestly, it was probably for the best. As much as I love the Warriors and love Steph Curry, it was obvious this team was just not the same. It just hasn't been the same for a while now. And clearly we weren't ready. We weren't ready to go for no playoff run. Hopefully next year will be different. Hopefully everybody will be healthy. Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. I'm hoping that my team makes one last big trade to really make this final push for a championship. I'm hoping for maybe a Giannis trade, maybe a Kawhi Leonard, because that was also being rumored that the Warriors wanted to get him. But again, I digress. We're not talking about the Warriors. They're sadly not in the playoffs. We got to talk about the teams that are. And like I said, the reason we're talking about the Suns and Thunder is because there were 2 games in this first round of the playoffs that everybody looked at and were like, wow, these were blowouts. In the first round of the Suns and Thunder, and also, too, you might notice me looking to the side. That's because I do have my phone here, because actively we do have 2 current going on playoff games at the moment. So I do want to just be keeping an eye out just to see how the scores be looking on who's on top while this show is going on. But again, this was one of the blowout games. People were pretty surprised with how much control the Thunder had. If you don't know Oklahoma City Thunder, they were the team that won the championship last year, and they've been on a hot streak. SGA looks like he might win another MVP possibly. I'm going to go with I hope I don't pronounce his name wrong, but I probably am. I think I think it's Nikolai Jokic, or the Joker, as the NBA calls. I think he deserves the MVP. That man has been balling out. But yeah, SGA, he looks like he's going to possibly win another MVP. The Thunder look unstoppable, and they proved it in this playoff game. I mean, they had full control over the Suns, and it even got crazier because by the last quarter, they had SGA just sitting on the bench, and even when he was on the bench, they still found a way to hold a lead over the Suns, and it was just like, man, it was just like, dude, they're dog walking him. No one, this looks like a team that's ready to try to win another championship again. So for anybody that might be watching this, that's an OKC fan. I know you must. If you are a basketball person and you've been watching them, I know you got to be feeling pretty happy because they look like they're ready to try to go on another run. They definitely look like they're in that lineup of teams to beat. But I have been hearing there's some other teams in here that people are like, oh no, that's the team to beat. And we're actually about to talk about that next team, and that is this matchup, which was the Celtics and the 76ers. As you can see, 123-91. This was another game that was similar to the Thunder-Suns game. It was a blowout. Celtics had full control of this game. I mean, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they were. I saw the highlights. They looked unstoppable. It looked like no one could find any way to stop them, no way to counter them. It just looked like 76ers didn't have anything to answer them. It was like they couldn't find any way to stop either from just scoring constantly. And they were just such a dynamic duo. And honestly, I think I have to agree with a little more people that the Boston Celtics look more like the team to beat right now. They look like a team that seriously got everything together. And it's kind of funny because there was a point in time Jason Tatum was possibly not even going to be like his season was supposed to be done, and yet he came back. So people are saying he shouldn't have came back. Hey, it was the same thing that people said to Steph Curry that he shouldn't have came back. And lo and behold, they beat the Clippers and Steph Curry balled out. But again, still, they're looking like, honestly, in my opinion, from what I've seen from the highlights and stuff, they're looking like a very up there team as a team to beat. But the last team I do want to talk about is the Lakers and the Rockets. As you can see, the score is pretty close, but the reason that this game is pretty big is considering the Lakers, they won this game with 40-something-year-old LeBron James. And that's impressive because LeBron, he's getting older. He ain't getting younger. And they don't have their other two best players active, Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic. I'm just going to pull up his picture here real quick because he was, for a minute, the talk of the town because he was the guy who was originally a Dallas Maverick, and then they traded him over to the Lakers. He's a great player, but he's a guy that, from what I've seen, paying attention and listening, he always seems to be a guy that ends up getting injured. He doesn't seem like he can stay healthy for a full season. And I think the Lakers, if they could get Luka to stay healthy for a whole season, then I think they'll be good. But sadly, that's not the case. Well, LeBron James, I mean, this dude, he went out there, played that game against the Rockets, and he balled out, and he made people kind of pay attention to him and be like, yeah, I might be 40-something, but I'm still over here playing. Let me see if I can even pull up. Let's see. LeBron James, yeah, so he had, as you can see, he's got his little breakdown of the points and stuff. He was going off in that game. He definitely put a lot of the haters quiet, and it's now bringing up the storylines. Can LeBron possibly carry this team to another championship? And now the worst part is that it's even being said Luka might come back from injury, that he might be coming back for a possible return in the playoffs. And it's looking, if LeBron is able to help this team out the way he's helping, and now you're considering that Luka could make a return, the Rockets might be in trouble. Sorry to say, Houston, but y'all might be in trouble, especially considering that your star player that you guys, I'm sorry, but this was a trade I was not a fan of. I remember before the season started, when it was announced that the Rockets had, let me see here, when the Rockets went out and traded for Kevin Durant from the Phoenix Suns, they sent over Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, and the number 10 pick in the draft. When I heard that, now, I've told you all before on the show, I'm not this big basketball guru guy. I'm really not. I'm more into the football. But when I heard that this trade was happening, as much as I love Kevin Durant from his time when he was a Golden State Warrior, I did not like the trade for the Rockets. The reason I did not like the trade for the Rockets, and I said this to some of my coworkers who are Houston fans, is because I don't understand. Now, some people would be like, well, you would do that because you're in a win now mode. So go and get a guy like Kevin Durant who's really good. I agree. Kevin Durant is a good player. I just don't get why you would trade two of your young stars on your team that I'm telling you from a standpoint of me being a Warriors fan. I remember last year in the playoffs when the Warriors had to play the Rockets, Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks were giving us a hard time. They were trouble for us. I remember, like, it was close games between us and the Rockets, and Jalen Green was a part of that. So my problem is I do not understand why the Rockets would take two young players like that, send them away, and then you go and get a guy like Kevin Durant who's on the older side. While he is great, he's a good basketball player. Sorry about that. He's a good basketball player, but he's older, meaning he is more injury prone. And sadly, that is what is costing the Rockets in the playoffs right now. Sure, that like you see, the score is close between the Lakers and the Rockets, but that does not change the fact that this game would probably be a lot more different if Kevin Durant was there, and he's not. He's injured, and there's no telling when he's going to come back. And if the Rockets don't get Kevin Durant back, I think that this is game over, and the Lakers end up moving on in the playoffs. But once again, it goes back to what I said. I don't understand why the Rockets would make such a bold move like that when, honestly, the team looked good with Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks on that team. I remember watching them in the playoffs. They looked like a solid team that maybe just needed one more player to get them over that hump. You know what I'm saying? And instead you got so to get that possible player to get y'all over the hump, you got rid of two good young players. You see what I mean? And then you look at it, we just talked about it. The Phoenix Suns are in the playoffs right now. We just briefly mentioned them in the Thunder game. Now, yes, did they get blown out by the Thunder? Of course they did. It's the OKC Thunder. But still, they're in the playoffs. Now, yes, you can also say, well, the Rockets are in the playoffs too without Kevin Durant. Well, Kevin Durant was a part of them making the score they had to make it to the playoffs. So he had a big hand. And it's just like now the Rockets are in a position where if Kevin Durant isn't healthy, then they could kiss this playoff run goodbye. And they're going to be looking back and being like, man, we had two really good young stars on this team, and we sent them away for a guy that's now not even in the playoffs for us. I didn't really agree with it. And so far, I know it's only game one. If you don't know, when it comes to the NBA playoffs, there are at least it's best of 7. So whoever wins the best out of the 7 matches, that closes the game out. So it's only game one. Anything could happen. Anything could change. We all know that's possible. But still, I look at it and I'm just like, I did not understand why the Rockets would trade those two young players away for someone like Kevin Durant. As much as I love him, the trade value made no sense to me. But that's all we're going to talk about as far as the NBA playoffs. I don't want to get talking into it too much, especially because I haven't paid that much attention to the season. I've only paid attention to a few games here and there and some of the storylines and stuff. And this playoffs is where things start to really ramp up. So I at least wanted to talk about that. You share your opinions. Hey, drop in the comments in the chat. Who's your favorite team? Who do you rep? I've already said who I rep. I rep Golden State. But we're going to go move on to the next news, and that is Wrestlemania. Yeah, Wrestlemania. We've all talked about it. Some good old WWE wrestling, a sport that's been around for quite some time, from legends like Hulk Hogan, rest in peace. I ain't gonna say much about that, but rest in peace, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ric Flair, John Cena, The Rock, all these people, Dave Bautista. You see all these guys. A lot of these wrestler turned actors. They all stemmed from one place, and that's WWE. And well, WrestleMania happened over the weekend. It is a 2-night event, Saturday and Sunday night. Saturday night, no one really talked about night one. That was kind of seemed like the lackluster, boring night. But night two is where things started to finally pick up. And well, as you can see on the screen, one of the first big things that happened in that WrestleMania 42 was, well, IShow Speed. He has made his return on that stage. And man, I remember seeing the clips of when he last showed up in WWE, and that man got speared. That man got speared. He was down on the ground. He was gasping for air. Dude didn't even look like he knew where he was. And I felt so bad. I was like, man, I was like, oh, why'd they do this to him? But he came back, and he came back in a big way. He came back with a new fit. Honestly, I like it. I like the black, red, and white. He even came with a cape, too. Like I said, it was a cool fit. And the best part about that night was, and thankfully I found it, was when he finished off his performance getting to drop down on Logan Paul here. I'm going to play that video in the background, but man, I got to admit, just seeing Logan Paul get beat up on by Speed I was like, good job. I don't like Logan Paul. I don't like the Paul brothers. They're a joke to any sport that they try to get involved with, but it was good. It was fun to see him get beat up on, especially how much he tries to talk. So like I said, I'm going to make my camera disappear like always, play the video in the background. I'm probably not going to play the full 1 minute and 52 seconds, but at least get into that one clip of Speed dropping down on Paul. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that poor boy. I don't care how we talk. I know we talked about him briefly in the flag football and everything, and I don't care how athletic this man is. Every time he show up on WWE, he look winded. And that play, you see his eyes are like, he's winded. I even heard too that like both him and Logan were hurt after that move. They were hurt. But oh my goodness, I mean, you saw it. It was a brutal move. But I have to admit, as much as I know that there's storylines they gotta follow and everything with WWE, I can't lie that there are moments when I see that and I'm like, okay, that's exciting. That's getting me hyped. That's getting me pumped. And seeing that, you even see I got a smile on my face. And I'm like, wow, that just makes me think I gotta get back into watching wrestling again. But that was one of the big things that happened on WrestleMania. But now, as you might have heard in that little background, they mentioned the Usos. Now, that is as they call themselves, the Bloodline. There is the Bloodline. That is a group that consists of 3 members. If I'm correct, I might be wrong. If any WWE fans are watching this, correct me in the chat or comments. But if I'm correct, the Bloodline is a group that consists of 3 brothers: Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, and you know what? Actually, instead of me trying to take a guess, I can just look that up myself. Let's see here. Bloodline. Yeah, so there's the Bloodline. That's normally a group here that normally consists of a few people, but normally when you be hearing about the Bloodline and stuff, there's normally like 3 faces that's on there. You hear a lot of times the Usos and stuff, but the guy that we're talking about here is the person in this picture. I'm actually just going to look him up directly, and that is Roman Reigns. This guy right here. We're talking about him because that was one of the other big storylines. If you remember, last year's WrestleMania, we had it where John Cena, he took on a championship belt and retired. Cody Rhodes had it for a while. Then CM Punk came around and took it. And then finally the big matchup was between Roman Reigns and that of CM Punk. And well, as you see in the title here, Roman Reigns did defeat CM Punk to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. I'm gonna kind of play the video a little bit in the background while I'm talking. I'm gonna make sure that it's not too loud. Let me see. We'll keep it like that. That was the big storyline of WrestleMania 42 of if he could take it over. And it's funny because before the night was, well, before WrestleMania 42, the night 2 was over, I had a call from my dad, and who he does love his WWE. He watches that. I remember years on years of him always talking about WWE. I know he was always a big fan, and he called me. He says, "Son, I want you to watch this because I'm telling you, the bloodline is back. They're about to have the bloodline go on a run where they're gonna be back on top." And I was like, okay, we'll see. We'll see. And well, lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Roman Reigns is now the new world heavyweight champion. He's back up on top, and it looks like my dad was right about that storyline. The bloodline looks to be back. They look like to be back and better than ever. And as I was saying, there was references, and even as I'm going to show you in this post right here, one of those references was, thanks to Friendly Wrestling, they put down Roman Reigns pinned CM Punk in the exact same fashion as he did to The Undertaker 9 years ago. Storytelling at its peak. What a match. This is how you deliver a main event. And as you can see, this is the video here. This is, like he said, look at that. Imagine that. That is from 9 years ago. So that would put us at 2017 when Roman Reigns did this to The Undertaker, another well-known wrestler from that 90s, 2000s era of WWE, and he came back, and Roman Reigns took him down to win. So someone put a side-by-side comparison pointing out how he takes out CM Punk is exactly word for word the same way he takes out Undertaker here, and we're going to play that too. Hold on as I take this volume down. So you can see they're tired, they're worn out. Roman Reigns is there, but you see Roman's tired. You see the person, they're trying to get up. They're trying to show they're still stronger. Roman Reigns. And you see it's a little longer, but ends the same way. He does the spear. It's just kind of funny. You see the difference in how Roman Reigns, 9 years later, he looks a lot more tired. You kind of see he looks a lot more tired. He's on the ground compared to in 2017 when this boy was compared to when this boy was looking at Undertaker like, dude, just stay down. But now he's the one on the ground like I'm tired with you. I'm getting old too. But yeah, it's cool to see. I see why people. And even at a point, and like I said, I want to kind of get back into watching WWE, but I can see why people could get invested in it because the storylines, they are entertaining. They are very entertaining to watch and see who ends up on top, especially if you become a favorite. And if I had to say out of a lot of those later 2010 people that started to come around and stuff that I would say is a favorite, Roman Reigns would definitely be up there. I was someone who grew up more on the John Cena, a little bit of like seeing that later half of The Rock, but I grew up on John Cena. That was you can't see me. My time is now. That was the guy I grew up watching. If I had to say all-time favorite wrestler, that would go to Macho Man Randy Savage. I loved him, and I love I'm not gonna do the voice. I love doing my voice impressions, but I'm not gonna do his because my throat is not gonna be able to handle it. But trust me when I say I can do a Macho Man Randy Savage impression, and it's a pretty good one. But yeah, that's my overall favorite. But the one I grew up with that I liked was definitely John Cena, who's now retired. I see him in movies now, and I enjoy his performances every time. But yeah, these storylines are fun. And speaking of storylines, there was another one that was going on in night 2, and that was between the likes of the returning Brock Lesnar, another iconic face in WWE, facing off against someone who is definitely an up-and-coming star in Oba Femi. They faced off in a match, and as this kind of gave a breakdown on Oba Femi of how he really looks like he could end up becoming one of the next stars. And I could definitely see it, especially when you list out all this stuff. This was his first debut at WrestleMania. Whole stadium is chanting his name during the entrance. Everyone is doing his walk. He's overpowering Lesnar. No selling F5. Beats Brock with one finisher. Retires Brock Lesnar. It couldn't go any better. Oba Femi is a star. And this is Oba Femi right here. One of the up and coming WWE wrestlers. And from the clips I've seen of him, I'm like, okay, I'm digging the vibes that he's handing out to people. He's handing out some cool vibes to his character that he developed here, and I can see why people like him. But as that said, he kind of ended up being he seemingly is the reason Brock Lesnar has his storyline is he's the reason Brock Lesnar retired. And it's kind of funny because Brock Lesnar was a guy who kind of dropped out of the WWE for a while. His storyline was he came back during that run for John Cena when he was trying to win the title. He came back kind of as like a final hill John Cena had to get over, because Brock Lesnar was a guy that always seemed like he was able to bully John Cena whenever they faced off, and John Cena had to finally get over that. And I can't remember how that outcome went, but I want to say John Cena did end up getting back and being able to successfully win. And well, as I'm about to play in this video here, now it's not confirmed, but the fact that, as you're going to see in the background here, you see that after Obafemi did that finisher on Brock, you see he's taking his shoes off, taking his gear off. He looks tired. He's doing an X. He's giving a big hug. And I, even though it's not confirmed, I think his facial expressions, him taking the clothes off and everything, definitely gives off heavy I'm retiring vibes. I'm done. Yeah, he came back. It was a good little comeback run. Yeah, he hugged Paul Heyman. And yeah, if I didn't know any better, that definitely looks like he's giving off the vibes of he retired. People, of course, in the comment section talk about their favorite moments with Brock Lesnar. You even see John Cena. Like I said, Brock Lesnar was always seen as like that guy bullying John Cena back in the day and his like rival. And now even he's finally putting his gear up and is finally admitting it's time to wrap it up. But it's cool. Like I said, I could see why people really love WWE, and it's even gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, this is pulling me back in. It's starting to bring back that imagination I had as a kid when it came to watching early WWE and everything. Of those storylines gets you enthralled, and WrestleMania 42, I think, did a good job at making me be like, okay, you're getting my attention. It's like the Leonardo DiCaprio from Django, where he's like, first I'm intrigued, and now you've piqued my interest. That line. So I have to say, good job to WrestleMania 42 and everyone behind it. You guys have piqued my interest again in WWE, and I will definitely be trying to pay more closer attention to what goes on in future matches and what future storylines they got going on. But again, sharing the chat and comments. What do you think about WWE? Do you have a special place for it? Did you ever grow up on watching any of these players? Or if you did, tell me, who did you grow up watching as the big star of WWE? Who was that guy that you were like, okay, he's everywhere and I like his vibe? I already shared my guy that I grew up watching and who was my favorite, but share yours. That's what the chat is for. Always open for that kind of stuff. But now, that is the last for the WrestleMania stuff, as we're going to move on to our final topic, and that is our NFL news, as we have a few little topics here specifically being reported to us by our lovely Adam Schefter. We've talked about him a few times before. He's a very well-known NFL reporter. He gives a lot of the breakdowns and reports and stuff about if a trade goes down, what's happening in the league. He's always that guy you can rely on, him and Ian Rappaport. And well, one of the first little news we're going to talk about here is involving with the Indianapolis Colts, as one of the things that was reported from Stephen Holder here is Colts GM Chris Ballard stated, and he quotes, cornerback Kenny Moore II and quarterback, so I did say cornerback and quarterback, Anthony Richardson Sr. are not present on the first day of off-season workouts. This is the moment where a lot of teams, after they've kind of gotten this is their OTAs and everything. This is where they get this is where a lot of times the players kind of get back together to train, get ready, and get more familiar with everybody there so they could be properly affiliated. And well, it was reported that 2 star players, one of the backup quarterbacks and the former first round rookie that the Colts drafted in Anthony Richardson, and a solid cornerback, Kenny Moore, they both did not show up to the workouts. And the thing is that these are both players that have requested trades away from Indianapolis. And now the fact that they're not there, and he also states there has been communication with both players and the sides are on the same page. As much as they may want him back, these are both players that have requested they don't want to be in Indianapolis anymore. They want to go somewhere else. They want to go somewhere that they feel like they're gonna probably be on a team that can win. Sorry, Colts fans, but let's just be real here. I feel like we'll have to see how this season turns out. But with one of the other news we're going to talk about, I don't know if this season's going to turn out the way you guys are maybe hoping. And I honestly fear last season might have been your last opportunity and chance to get to the playoffs and possibly be a actual competitor for a Super Bowl. But who knows? Anything can happen. But again, and we have talked about Anthony Richardson. I did briefly talk about a couple weeks ago that there were rumors about Anthony Richardson after he requested the trade, and that possibly teams being interested in a quarterback might be out to look for him and a possible trade with the Colts. We talked about the Vikings being a team, considering that Kevin O'Connell seemed to really like Anthony Richardson and even had a brief conversation talking about he'll make it far in this league. So people thought maybe the Vikings would want to trade. Well, we already know what happened. The Vikings got Kyler Murray, and that seems to be the quarterback they went out to go and get. But other teams, my Green Bay Packers, they were brought up because we currently do not have a backup quarterback. Our only backup quarterback is Desmond Ridder. And sorry, but yeah, no, that's not going to work. Desmond Ridder, he's like bottom of the barrel backup QB, and we just know he's not really going to give us what we need. And so Anthony Richardson, he wouldn't be a bad QB, but I know that the Colts, I think what's happening here is that I think there are teams interested. I just think that the Colts might be trying to put too high of a price tag on Anthony Richardson, which I can't blame them. They did spend a first-round pick on him in the draft 2 years ago. 2 years ago. 2 years ago. So, they put a first-round draft pick into him. And so, of course, they're like, we don't want to just get anything for him. We want to get something as solid compensation. But I think there's a lot of teams that are like, well, you guys have Daniel Jones. You've drafted Riley Leonard. You guys are letting him request a trade. So, clearly, you guys aren't fighting hard enough to keep him. So, why should we give you guys what you think you deserve for him if clearly you guys don't value him that way, if you're willing to let him go out there and look for trades? But one of the other teams I did talk about was the Los Angeles Rams. That was a team that I said I think would be a great landing spot, considering the matchup of Richardson learning under Matthew Stafford, a veteran quarterback who's won a Super Bowl and has been in this league for quite some time, and learning under Sean McVay, and even getting that proper assistance from some of that offensive coordinating group. So I always said that. And then we even talked about in one of my previous episodes, Ricky Scoops, a very well-known reporter who always seems to get these scoops, breaking down stuff, and always seems to be not always right, but mostly right. And I even broke it down. He was the guy who was the very first to report that the Packers were going to trade for Micah Parsons last year. And hey, it happened. And one of the things he said before he signed off was, be ready, the Rams will trade for Anthony Richardson, and Anthony will end up a Los Angeles Ram. It's been quiet. We haven't heard anything. I don't know what's going on, if the Rams are waiting closer to the draft to see if maybe they see a quarterback in that draft that they would rather go after and draft and pick up than give up a draft pick and a possible player to the Colts. So I think that definitely we'll probably start hearing more about what's the future of Anthony Richardson in this league once the draft either passes or is about to start. And yeah, even Adam Schefter, he kind of, quote, retweeted this talking about trade request in Indy. So kind of doubling down that, yeah, there's talks that they don't want to be in Indianapolis anymore. And I can't blame them. I really can't. But speaking of the Colts, that's one of the other things we're going to talk about here briefly is a guy that we did talk about in a previous episode when we were saying how the Cowboys still need to pay George Pickens, the wide receiver. They need to give him a new contract. They gave him we talked about it. They did the franchise tag. And we know that he did not accept that franchise tag. So now they're in a space where they have to create a new opportunity and deal with him to keep him on the team. And we said that because they waited so long, 2 other receivers got big contracts. That was Jackson Smith and Jigba, a.k.a. JSN of the former Super Bowl winning Seahawks, who got a big contract. Another one was this guy right here. And that was Alec Pierce. He got a major deal where it was being rumored he was going to be a free agent, meaning any team would be able to pick him up. And, well, the Colts, they didn't want to let him go. They brought Daniel Jones back and signed him. And we're like, hey, okay, your quarterback's back. We know you love Daniel Jones. He's back. So how about you come back? And while they reached a deal that made him a pretty high-end receiver, well, it was reported – man, the Colts cannot catch a break. Adam Schefter reported Colts wide receiver Alec Pierce recently underwent surgery after playing through nagging ankle pain for much of last season and will be sidelined during off-season workouts. General Manager Chris Ballard said Monday. Man, Indianapolis cannot catch a break because you just paid this man a massive contract to keep him in Indy, to stay as your top receiver, and now there's a possibility, depending on how serious his injury is, or more so how serious the surgery was, he may not end up playing or practicing in pretty much the important OTAs, and that's not good. OTAs are pretty essential for some of those players to get familiar, get back into it. So meaning now he's going to be sitting on the sideline kind of watching, maybe doing some minor workouts, but nothing serious. And like I said, if this turns out to be a more serious surgery / injury, he could end up missing time in the regular season. And at that point, that means that their receiving room is going to be Josh Downs, Tyler Warren, the rookie tight end that they drafted last year. And that's not good. And if they're not having if they're not having all of their weapons for Daniel Jones to throw to, especially he's a guy who's coming back from a serious injury, it's not good. It's not looking good for Indianapolis. And that's why I said earlier, I fear last season might have been the closest that and of course, Jonathan Taylor, he's not a receiver, but he's their star running back. And he's definitely up there as one of the best currently playing right now. But still, last season might have been their last opportunity to go out there and possibly win, because now they're kind of in a weird place. And let's not even forget how they got kind of swindled by the Jets, giving up those 2 first-round draft picks to the Jets for Sauce Gardner, a guy that barely played last season. And Sauce Gardner's a good corner, but doesn't change the fact he was barely on the field for most of the season. And so now they have no first-round draft picks to build up their roster and maybe draft a receiver. And now their star receiver that they paid a massive contract to might possibly miss time, depending on how bad this injury is. So wishing all the luck to Alec Pierce. Hopefully this injury isn't serious and he'll be able to play for the Colts in this coming season, because the Colts need him. They drastically need him. But speaking of, we briefly mentioned the Cowboys. They finally signed one of their star players, and that was their kicker, Brandon Aubrey. We did talk about him as well in a previous episode where they had to give him a new contract, and it looked like he was going to hold out, that he wanted that new contract. He wanted to become one of the highest paid kickers. There were rumors that maybe he would end up hitting free agency and some other team. I was hoping maybe my Packers, because we would definitely need a kicker after how bad Brandon McManus looked and cost us those games in the playoffs. But still, we didn't know what was going to happen. And, well, it got reported by Ian Rappaport, one of the reporters that we did briefly talk about here. reported Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey has agreed to a 4-year, $28 million deal, making him the highest paid kicker in the NFL. And I mean, congratulations to Brandon Aubrey. This is a man that has proven to be pretty reliable for the Cowboys. He's been one of the best things the Cowboys have had for quite some time. He's a former soccer player that ended up becoming a kicker, and he's a guy that typically does not miss his kicks. He is normally really good. He's always on top on that. He's set some of the records for some of the longest kicks, typically competing with Tucker, but we know we don't talk about that Tucker anymore because he's no longer in the league for certain reasons. But still, this guy was setting records. Him and Cam Little are probably the two best kickers in the league currently playing right now. So I'm glad he got his money. So now, of course, as everybody's saying, this opens up for the Cowboys to now focus on George Pickens because he needs that contract. And if the Cowboys want to seriously be relevant again, they cannot let George Pickens walk to another team. They just can't do that. If they want to be serious about this, they need to lock down George Pickens as soon as possible. But again, congratulations to Brandon Aubrey on getting that bag. And we're going to now talk about another player. We're going to talk about another player here who got the bag, and that was none other than 49ers left tackle Trent Williams. As Adam Schefter reported, the 12-time Pro Bowler reached an agreement today with the 49ers on a 2-year, $50 million extension that now contractually ties him to San Francisco through the 2027 season. And, well, that's good news. I remember hearing the reports that they were running into a crossroads with each other. Trent Williams wanted that bag. The 49ers were trying to find a way to give him the bag, but not also take away money that they had to properly spread around to some of their other players. And it was almost looking like Trent Williams was going to hit not free agency. It was looking like this guy was going to end up getting traded. Well, that saga is officially over. He stays over there in San Francisco. This is a big win. They needed to keep someone of a veteran presence on that O-line because you can't have your star quarterback and Brock Purdy getting sacked almost every time he drops back to throw the ball. So good. That's a good thing. Good on Trent Williams. He's been doing this for a while. He is definitely one of the best offensive tackles out there. He is really good at his job when it comes to protecting the quarterback. So he deserved the bag, and I'm glad that I don't know if my auntie is watching this. She's a big San Francisco fan. I want to congratulate him fully, but the 49ers have ruined a lot of my Packers playoff hopes. So congratulations to Trent Williams for getting the bag, and I'm not going to congratulate the 49ers. Forget y'all. But yeah, so that's another player that got his money's worth. So that's very good. We like to see it. We like to hear it. Players that especially have been doing this for a while and they're good at what they do. I always believe they do deserve that bag. One of the next things we're going to talk about here is there was a trade that happened these past couple days, and that was between – I'm trying to do a drum roll. I can't really do it. But between the Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Giants, where the Bengals acquired 28-year-old Dexter Lawrence II, defensive tackle, and the Giants received their round 1 pick 10 for this upcoming draft in a couple days. And we did talk about it. When you have the draft coming up, especially when we're in the week of the draft, this is where the news starts to ramp up. And as you can see, last we checked, the Giants, they had the number 5 pick in the draft. Now, thanks to this trade, they got both the 5th pick and the 10th pick. We had been hearing Dexter Lawrence wanted out of New York. The Giants didn't really want to let him go. They have been talking for years now for a contract extension. It seemed like they never could get it done. Dexter Lawrence, it looked like he was finally done with them. He was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. You either pay me or you trade me. And it looks like they finally were able to find someone to trade. When I first saw this trade, I was a little mixed because I was like, man, so the Giants get the. I was like, man, I feel like I don't know really who won this because the Giants lose a star defensive tackle player, but they get another draft pick. And the Bengals, I was like, man, y'all lose a draft pick like that, and draft picks are important, but looking at it more and more, I'm like, okay, I see the vision. I understand what's going on here. This is a case of the Bengals are trying to show their star quarterback, Joe Burrow. I'm going to pull up a picture of Joe Burrow for anybody that maybe doesn't know what he looks like. He is the quarterback for the Bengals. He's the guy that is under center throwing the ball, number 9. You've definitely seen his face. He was in the Super Bowl against the Rams and Matthew Stafford a couple years back when we had one of my favorite Super Bowl performances. But still, the Bengals are trying to show Joe that they care about him. They're trying to show that they really are in a win-now mode, and they're going to try to do everything they can to do things right. And well, they did that by trading for one of a consensus of one of the best defensive tackles out there, Dexter Lawrence from the Giants. And this is a guy that a lot of people have agreed his nickname. I forget. You can't talk about Dexter Lawrence without at least bringing up his iconic nickname, Sexy Dexy. Man, it's so crazy when some of these players be having some of the nicknames they do. But, yeah, Sexy Dexy. And this is the Bengals' way of trying to show Joe Burrow, hey, we brought back your 2 star receivers in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. We're now getting you this star defensive tackle after we sadly let Trey Hendrickson go and now is with our division rival in the Ravens. We want to prove to you that we're really all in for you, and now we're bringing a guy who has done something that a lot of defensive tackles don't do, and that's get pressure, and Dexter Lawrence has been one of the best at doing that. So they're really trying to show to Joe Burrow that, hey, we in a win-now mode. We're ready to do this with you and run this back for us to make it to another Super Bowl again and hopefully get a ring on these fingers. And when I look more at it, I'm like, okay, this is really showing they're in win-now mode. They want to do this, and I'm like, all right, let's see what happens, Bengals. And this is also a case of the Bengals see it. The Bengals are noticing that their league is open. The Steelers, we don't know what's going to happen with them. Aaron Rodgers is once again being wishy-washy. As much as I love Rodgers as a Packers fan, I do not like his era in Pittsburgh where this man has been leaving that team on hold, leaving this team questioning and wondering, hey, are you gonna start for us this coming year? It's been a messy process. And so you got the Steelers. We don't know what's going to happen with them. Are they going to be competitive? I doubt it. The Ravens, that's another team where, yes, they got the MVP in Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, but we don't know. And now they have Trey Hendrickson on that defense, but we don't know if they're going to be ready again. But they probably will. Then you have the Browns. That's all you need to say. It's the Browns. So the Bengals, they're seeing an opportunity here where they can finally win this division again and possibly make it back to the playoffs and possibly back to a Super Bowl. And, yeah, I think that this was a smart move. You got to be in a win-now mode because there's only so long you're going to be able to hold on to Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and T. Higgins. I do know this, though. If they don't win this, jobs are going to be on the line. If they don't end up making it to the playoffs or underperforming again, I could definitely see Zach Taylor getting fired. I could see they don't even have a general manager to fire. They're one of the few teams in the league that doesn't have a general manager, which is ridiculous, but I digress. So jobs could be on the line. And this could also be the end of the Joe Burrow era in the Bengals because I don't know if Joe Burrow is going to want to stay with this team another season if they can't get over this hump. And this is probably their best chance to do it. So the Bengals are definitely a team I'm going to be keeping my eyes on. And we'll see. Maybe they make it back to another Super Bowl. Hey, the Super Bowl is back in SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Who knows? Could be a Bengals-Rams rematch. That would be fun, see those two teams back at it again and see if the Bengals rewrite their story. Of course, I'm not rooting for that. If I had to pick between the Rams and the Bengals, I'm picking the Rams. SoCal, Los Angeles, LA. But, again, share what you think. Do you think this was a smart move by the Bengals, or do you think that maybe they should have gotten more? what do you think about this trade? Because especially, I just want to share before we move on to our next topic. A lot of people were saying that Dexter Lawrence was worth a late first round draft pick or a second and a fifth. The Giants got a top 10 pick out of him. So I don't know. Some people might even feel the Bengals got swindled, but hey, that's where everybody's got their own opinion. Share your opinion down below. What do you think? Do you think the Bengals got swindled out of this, or do you think that they're definitely in this win now mode and don't care what they got to do to try to get back to the Super Bowl? Now, since we're talking about the Giants, there has been some other big Giants news that happened as – let me move my little camera out the way here. Some of the other big Giants news that occurred was there had been rumors for a while now that Odell Beckham Jr., whenever he was getting interviewed, people should know Odell Beckham. He's the guy that was behind the iconic – let me see if I can pull it up. Let's see. He was the guy behind the famous catch. He was behind the famous one-handed catch against the Dallas Cowboys, where he leaped up in the air and was able to grab a football with one hand and got a touchdown. And he became famous off of that. Everybody loved him. Everybody talked about him. And then we kind of never heard much about him because then he got traded to the Browns, paired up with Baker Mayfield. He didn't really do that good. Then after the Browns saga, he went to the Rams when they won that Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford, but he was not really part of he was on the team. He helped out during the regular season. Then he got injured and he really wasn't an impactful player in that Super Bowl game. But still, he somewhat helped them get there. So he was part of that Super Bowl winning team. And then he went to the Ravens, and then we never heard from him again. He kind of disappeared. Well, every time he got interviewed in a lot of recent NFL things that he's been popping up in, he's been telling people, I still want to play. I still think I got it in me for another season or two to show high-level receiver play for a quarterback. And people said, could it be possible a reunion between you and the former Giants? And he said, hey, he's basically being like, hey, anything's possible. And, well, Ian Rappaport reported on Monday that former Giants star receiver Odell Beckham Jr. worked out for his old team. A reunion seems possible. I don't know about you. If I'm a Giants fan, that sounds pretty exciting considering that you have not one, but two first-round draft picks. You have the Ravens' former head coach and John Harbaugh as your new head coach. You have Cam Scatterboo. You got Jackson Dart. You got Malik Neighbors, your star receiver. You have those two draft picks to go out there and possibly get some star players in those top 10 picks. And you now could possibly see a reunion with Odell Beckham Jr. after losing Wan'Dale Robinson to the Titans. I would be pretty excited for a reunion. And who knows? What better way to show that you still got it than reunion with your old team where you really had your only good season? Let's be real. I mean, after he left the Giants, he never really was the same Odell Beckham. I think a lot of people will tell you that. I remember even my brother, he wasn't really a football team fan. He followed Odell Beckham. If Odell was on the Browns, he was a Browns fan. If he was on the Ravens, he was a Ravens fan. If he was on the Rams, he was a Rams fan. He cared more about Odell Beckham and where he went than the team that he was watching. But still, I would be pretty excited to see Odell Beckham back in the cleats. I don't know how he's going to look after all these years, but hey, anything's possible. If Joe Flacco and Phillip Rivers can come out of retirement years later to play football, then Odell Beckham can definitely do it. So share your opinions. What do you think about Odell Beckham coming back into the league for the play for the Giants possibly? But now we're going to move on to our two final news here. Since we're talking about wide receivers, we're going to talk about a receiver we've briefly talked about before on this show, and that is A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. There has been rumors on rumors on rumors about A.J. Brown and that he is going to get traded from the Eagles. It started off as it's not going to happen. Then where there's smoke, there's fire. More talks came in, Even though the general manager was like, oh, we're not going to move on from A.J. Brown. He's going to still be on this team. He's still an Eagle. But more rumors came out. Patriots being a major team wanting him. And, well, Adam Schefter reported on Monday the Eagles remain open to trading A.J. Brown. The Patriots remain highly interested in acquiring the star receiver, and conversations are expected to resume shortly on or before June 1st, likely culminating in a deal, per league sources. As one source said about the Patriots' pursuit of Brown, they'll definitely be engaging then. A trade to New England is now considered likely. Like I said, nothing is official, but it is possibly looking like A.J. Brown might end up as a New England Patriot somewhere after June 1st. But I'm going to just leave you off with my 2 cents in this. One is I could definitely see this happening, very much so, especially because the head coach of the Patriots is Mike Vrabel. A.J. Brown, he was drafted to the Titans when Mike Vrabel was their head coach. So there's a connection there. Vrabel has to definitely be one of the lead people who is making a push for A.J. to come there. And I think A.J. wants to reunite with that head coach. But I also get this suspicion this is the Eagles' way to try to sell high. And because considering that literally a week or two ago, Howie Roseman, the general manager of the Eagles, was saying, oh no, he's going to be a Philadelphia Eagle for life. We're not going to move on for him. And then later to allow information like this to get out that they're actually interested in considering trading him, that feels deliberate. It feels like they're intentionally trying to put a high ceiling on A.J. Brown, and they want people to know that, hey, the Patriots, a team that was just in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks just this year, they want A.J. Brown, and we're very much interested in giving A.J. Brown to them after June 1st. Hey, who's out there that wants a star receiver and might be able to offer more of, not the money, but the draft capital? And, well, that brings up a good conversation. I was watching on ESPN. They talked about that because this has now been officially reported, a team like the Bills, they might see that their rival is trying to get the star receiver, and they're like, wait a minute, we don't want them to get better than us. We want to be the best team in the AFC East. So they might end up going in trying to offer something more than what the Patriots, and kind of lead into a bidding war on who can offer the best draft picks for a guy of his talent. And I think this is a smart move by the Eagles. Get teams interested. We know that there were rumors the Rams were interested in A.J. Brown's services, and that they even considered doing a trade of, I think it was Devontae Adams to the Eagles, and then the Eagles would give the Rams A.J. Brown, and then I think a first-round draft pick or a second-rounder would have been put in there. And I've been saying it before. I do think that we are going to see a trade happen. Who it's going to be with, I don't know if I'm certain to say it's going to be the Patriots. I think there's going to be some teams that are now going to notice this and are going to be like, hey, we have better draft picks. We might be able to offer something a little more juicier to the Eagles to get them. But I don't think A.J. Brown's going to be an Eagle. I just don't see why the Eagles would bring in all the players they've been bringing in free agency and in trades, and then still hold on to A.J. Brown. At that point, you just wasted a lot of money on other receivers just to not properly plan ahead of a possible replacement. But we'll have to see. What do you think? Do you think that A.J. Brown is no longer going to be a Philadelphia Eagle this upcoming season, or do you think that this is all just some big ploy to see who is going to offer the best pick, and then they end up pulling away and be like, nope, we're not going to do it? What do you think? Shout out in the chat or comment below. But our last thing we're going to do before we close out this show tonight is we have not talked about this guy before, but that was one of the big talks of last season, was after when we had that famous week 18 game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, a heated rivalry between these two AFC North teams. John Harbaugh versus Mike Tomlin, two of the longest active head coaches in the league currently right now. And then it was then after the Steelers won because of a missed kick by Tyler Loop of the Ravens, it was then announced that the Ravens were splitting ways with John Harbaugh and he would no longer be in Baltimore. And then we heard Baltimore was now going to be looking for a new head coach. John Harbaugh was now going to be a New York Giant, and that was history. The rivalry was now over. And then shortly after the early playoff exit for the Steelers, it was then announced Mike Tomlin would be leaving the Steelers and essentially retiring as their head coach. We didn't know what was going to happen. We thought that with all the teams that needed head coaches, he would maybe end up as a head coach somewhere else. And, well, that didn't happen. Then there were reports saying that he was going to end up becoming an analyst. And then after maybe a year of being an analyst, he would then come back to the head coaching position and possibly see what team would want him. And I think if he does come back into head coaching, I think every team is going to want Mike Tomlin to be their guy, because I still think Mike Tomlin has it to be a solid, good head coach for a team. And I think any team that gets him is going to find a good head coach in him. But it was reported by Ari Merov. He's also been an NFL reporter I've seen a few times get a lot of things right. It was reported by the New York Times Athletic. Former Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin has reached agreement on a deal to join NBC as a top studio analyst on its Sunday night pregame show, Football Night in America, per Andrew Marchand. Congratulations, Mike Tomlin. You're now an analyst. And so just like what I was hearing in rumors and stuff, Mike Tomlin, he's taking up an analyst job for NBC. And so, yeah, get ready, everybody. When you're watching Sunday night, getting ready to watch Sunday Night Football, and you see Football Night in America, you're going to be seeing Mike Tomlin's lovely face on that screen, giving his breakdowns on the two teams playing off against each other in that Sunday night game, and I'm excited. I like Mike Tomlin. He's definitely one of my favorite head coaches out there. I just love his vibes. He's always seemed like a really cool guy. And he's given us some funny, memeable quotes. And I want to say, for anybody that maybe is like, oh well, his face looks familiar, and I know the Steelers, but I don't really know. I don't really know who Mike Tomlin is. Well, I'm gonna pull up a little clip of Mike Tomlin that I think more people, when you see it, you're gonna be like, oh, that's Mike Tomlin. I've seen that meme everywhere, so I'm gonna go and play.
Mike, what is your reaction to potentially playing 13 straight weeks, and how tough will that be physically?
We do not care.
Yeah, he is. Yes, that is Mike Tomlin, the former head coach of the Steelers. He always gives those iconic, funny interviews where he just says something so out of pocket that just makes you be like, how, can you even say that? And I just love him. His vibe is so funny. But yes, he is the "we do not care" guy. So, what do you think? Are you excited to see Mike Tomlin seemingly become a full-time analyst for Football Night in America on future Sunday night games? Or are you more so excited and ready to see him back behind the saddle as a head coach? Share your opinions in the chat and comment below. But that's our last topic for tonight. Like I said, this was a jam-packed episode. For a recap, we talked about Wrestlemania 42 and specifically Night 2 and what went down and who retired, where the storylines are going. We talked about briefly the NBA playoffs that's currently going on right now, and possibly what's the future for these teams. Even looking at my scores right here, the 76ers actually pulled an upset on the Celtics, so the game series is tied 1-1. Okay, I was just talking all that praise about the Celtics, and it looks like they might not be as good as I thought they were. I'm just kidding. It's just, like I said, that's only game 2. But we talked about the NBA playoffs. We broke down a lot of NFL news. We talked about Coyote versus Acme, the upcoming Looney Tunes movie. We talked about the future X-Men reboot. So, as always, you guys know what it is. I'm your boy. This is Fl33tway's Roundup. Y'all have a good night. Stay safe and take care.